I am so excited to be back with the Wise Women Roundtable. It has been a while. And for various reasons, this has been a very intense year, the entire year, 2025. And it's not lightening up before we get to the end of the year. So uh, we have more, probably more intensity, more shifts, more changes, just so much happening, but it's happening for us, not to us, though it could feel like it's happening to us, depending on what part of the crazy, wild, chaotic world that you're living in and, how that's affecting you. Uh, so just to say, for me personally, I've been going through a lot of feeling emotional. I have a dear priestess sister, 94 years old, who's going through her transition right now, and she was friends with my mom, and that takes me back to my mother's passing, and so I'm in this deep process of feeling what I feel, and we have this Grandwater trine that's been in place and kind of goes out and then it comes back in, and by the time we get to the new moon on November 21st, 19th. What is it? What day is that new moon actually? No, November 19th, that grand trine's back in place with the sun, the moon, and Mercury all together and trying to Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn and Neptune in Uranus. And the other thing that's happening is then Uranus, I mean, I'm not Saturn and Neptune, and then Uranus is opposite that new moon in Taurus at 29 degrees Taurus. And so this is so it's just creating this powerful opportunity. And I feel like the feelings are already up for a lot of people. I can't even tell you how many people, and lots of people passing. I've been hearing it in so many different circles and places. So it seems like an exit point for some, and then that brings up whatever it brings up for people. And so unexpected events and with Mercury also with this new moon, Mercury exactly conjunct the sun and the moon at the new moon. It's like a reset point, not only for the Scorpio mysteries happening at the last degree of Scorpio, but for the mental, for the intellectual, for how we communicate and creatively express the Mercury aspects of that in the heart of the sun with the moon. So something new being energized and activated around that. And then we can leap to the new moon in December, right before the December solstice. And actually, before I do that, I will say that there's going to be a lot of activations around a star called Antares, the heart of the Scorpion. Mars is there. It was on it's pretty close to that point at the new moon in November. And then the sun will be there on December 1st. And then Venus will be there on December 8th. And then Mercury will be there on December 19th at the next new moon. And Antares is considered to be the key to the Golden Gate by ancient cultures, meaning, it's right there near galactic center. It's like a access point or a portal activation, and it's a heart star, and it's one of the four royal stars of the ancients. It's also a magical star of the ancient alchemists. So whenever planets are near the star, that's when the alchemists would make their potions, elixirs, talismans, do their ceremonies, create their intentions, that sort of thing. So we're going to have several opportunities to do that between now and the December solstice. And then we have the new moon on December 19th, sorry, on December 19th, at the last degrees of Sagittarius, 28 degrees Sagittarius, right with galactic center. So there's this whole transmission of the sun and the moon at galactic center, beaming directly towards Earth. That new moon is also going to be very out of bounds, meaning it's so that we could say, here's the ecliptic, the path the planets follow. And the moon's going to be very below that path and going directly over galactic center. So transmitting directly from galactic center to the Earth. And so it's just like, whoa, we are being recalibrated, reset, we could rebooted, reimagined. I don't know. It's like all those things are happening. Meanwhile, of course, Mercury's retrograde until like November. 27th, I think. So there's that going on during this time that gives us a chance to go deeper with all of this. And it starts out in Sagittarius retrograde on November 9th, and then it goes direct in Scorpio. I'm hoping I'm remembering that maybe it's November 29th. Yeah, I think it's November 29th in Scorpio. So lots of intensity with that as well. And um, so and what's happening with the new moon, the other thing that's happening with the new moon, in addition to the fact that the moon's crossing directly over galactic center at the new moon, in addition to the fact that there's also a Pallas Athena and Characlo conjunction happening within hours before the new moon, and this is the third one they've had this year. So there's been some kind of recalibration going on with Characlo is the wife of Chiron, healer, feminine healer energy, and Pallas Athena is like a warrior protector energy when she's in her healthy expression, because she has her not healthy expression like they all do. But and so they're meeting together for the third time at 19 degrees Aquarius. And so this Aquarius Sagittarius energy is like expanding consciousness and perspective and how we're seeing things. And both of them are about that. Sagittarius being about the quest for truth, and for expansion of consciousness as well. So then the other thing that's happening, and I've talked about this a little bit before, is that 3i Atlas is making its closest approach to the Earth on December 19th at the new moon with all this stuff going on. So it's like adding some unknown factor because, they don't really know what 3i Atlas is, and there's lots of speculation out there about it. And I just feel like, for me personally, I feel like it's showing up at the perfect time to get us to start wondering and asking the questions and being open to seeing things in a completely different way than whatever it is that we've seen before. So I feel like those are the main things. And then, of course, the December solstice is a couple days later, so we'll be starting a whole new solar year on December 21st, and really that's going to lead us into 2026, which is also a very spectacular year. Something we'll cover another time. We'll just know that this is like the last hurrah of 2025 as we get to the end of the year. It's just so remarkable and so amazing. And I feel like we could have a lot of hope, even though the world looks pretty insane. So with that, I think I'm going to pass this on to Elizabeth, because I know you're going to have amazing things to say.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate being able to get the star field laid out first and then being able to talk about that as a grounding or an internal process that's going to come from the inner world, where we do all this inner work right now with all of this, and remembering always that this is simply a reflection of what's in you. And so, a couple of things to help people ground all this stuff, because there's lots of opinions and ideas floating around, and to make sure that you are aware of this. And Kaylin and Sarah and I were talking about this beforehand about how powerful your attention is. So, what are you being led to look at? And how do you make sure that it's actually within your own divine destiny? Because you can easily get taken off track, right? We have three different parts of ourselves that are playing out. We have the soul, we have the body, and we have the ego. And these are three totally very separate things. And we tend to identify as the body and ego, and that's not the case. And so I believe right now we're being asked to even take that more seriously than ever, not to identify with anything. Identity will certainly create fears and desires, and then that bolsters the egoic structure and our expectations and our attachments and our expectations and attachments, especially to outcomes, when right now everything is so unknown. So we're in such incredibly new territory. And we've been seeing all of that as the roundtable for a very long time, that we've come into a time where we can't really easily say this is going to, happen, and this is how it's going to pan out. Instead, it's here's the environment, and we're in a new part of the jungle. that no one's ever been in. We're a new place in space that no one's ever been in. And that means for our whole galaxy too. So how can you ground all of this? First, don't identify with your body. Don't identify with your ego. Understand that your soul knows beyond your mind. And if your mind thinks it knows, then you bow to it and say, thank you very much. I appreciate you trying to help me. But my plan is to let the divine pan out here, and I'm looking for the signs. And so there's always little signs everywhere, especially in nature, and everything, the veil's very thin, so everything's getting seen very clearly. And divine knowing feels like, well, I, as Elizabeth, don't have any idea what I'm doing or what's going on or whatever, but I know at a different level that what I'm being asked to do is correct, and it's a full body trust. It's a full body sense of peace, even a deep tranquility despite chaos perhaps going on in your life. Secondly, make sure you're always assessing, what do I desire and what do I fear? Because that's usually what's distorting those choice points. And make sure you're always assessing that, because you can't and shouldn't take action in fear or desire. Those are projections from structure, and they're projections from your epigenetic memory that's coming from the body. So as a soul, you're meant to have that bigger expanded awareness like Kaylin's talking about. And how do you play with that? Well, here's what I like to do. To stop your brain from trying to take control of everything, you have to go outside of time. And so to do that, you tell your brain, I have no past and I have no future. And your brain really can't understand that. So it stops. It does. It's like a little stop. And then when you're in that stop, then you ask yourself, can I make myself big enough to hold the world in my hands? That's the goddess or God self, right? Can I hold the whole world in my hands? Can I see all the different awake people and all the different dramas and traumas and the polarities and all of that, creating novel reality and appreciate it with great love? Can I hold the world in my hands? And then you get one step above that. Then you get to the cosmic self where you hold the galaxy in your hands. And then you have this great sense of compassion for the world and compassion for the galaxy, because the galaxy is a living being and it too is going through a transition in a new place in space. And then we have the next step. Can you hold the universe in your hands? Are you willing to recognize that the end goal of the game is not to obsess over the identity of your soul and your essence and anything like that, because that was never you in the first place, but to use it as a launch point to recognize that the way you win the game while you're still being Elizabeth or Sarah or Kaylin, the way you win the game is to recognize you are the creator, that you come from source, and that that's the ultimate way for us to play this game. And that it truly is that, because we come in with all these factors and we play it out to see, can I make it so that I've become aware that I'm the player of the game? And the operating system is the universe. And can I step outside of it? Am I capable enough? Am I willing to have such little structure and identity that I can step outside of it and hold the whole thing with compassion and love in my hands? And so that's the zooming out, the expansiveness. But then there's another direction. You could take that light that you gather, and it's a light that is not knowable. Your mind doesn't understand it. It can't, because the mind is built inside the universe. But you can take it all back into the form that is your body. And when you take all that light, you bring it back in, and then you zoom in, and you can become your liver, right? Or you can become your kidneys, or you can become your brain. You can become a single cell in your body. And if you've ever tried to go into what I call like micro remote viewing of your own cells, it's quite fun because they're very much alive. They have personalities and they have all these little organelles that have personalities. It's like a big room full of cats. And it's quite beautiful and fun. But you're bringing all that awareness from the soul in and out, zooming in and out of reality, getting used to being able to perceive all these different layers with great neutrality, waiting for the exact right timing, the exact right actions that your brain doesn't need to know. It can't, but your source in you, your soul knows. And your spirit is so much larger than your body. It expands beyond the universe. And then that is what is going to get you to your awareness. And it's going to help you to navigate when your ego kicks in to try to keep you connected to the matrix. It's going to kick in with either arrogance, which makes you reckless, or worthlessness, which makes you self-destructive. And you'll catch all that more and more and more. You'll catch it and you'll be able to actually coast through these things. So the visual and the metaphor I keep getting is that we are all inevitably in this wonderful stream, this river of consciousness, and these cool little inner tubes we call the body. And we're bouncing around and we see the drama and the trauma in our life. They're big boulders, but really the boulders bounce you back into this main stream of things. And we're heading back to the ocean always. And then incarnation is us raining down to become part of the stream again, over and over again, this cycle that we keep choosing to do because we're creators. And we're doing this through novel experience. And there's nothing more novel than what's going on right now. We'll never ever see something quite as this amazing as Three Eye Atlas, not in our lifetimes. So this is it. This is the thing we've been waiting for, this kind of, black swan random thing that occurs that throws us into a whole other level of expansive curiosity. It's very exciting. And to just be very patient, watch carefully, wait, understand that there's a divine order, a divine timing, and that nothing is outside of that. So that's what I keep perceiving, and I'll hand it off to Sarah to help ground us even more into our experience with the earth too.
Mm. Yeah, fascinating. Thank you, Elizabeth. I smiled all the way through that. And I think it's really important right now that we get curious. And that's, I think, one of your messages to me today is just like, let's get curious about this and, adopt a lighter attitude or way of seeing it. So, Elizabeth asked me when we were talking before we started recording, because we were talking about all of this and more. And she said, so what does the nature kingdom, what take does the nature kingdom of the trees and the flowers and nature have on all of this? And I was like, oh, that's an interesting question. But as it happens, it is actually what I was guided to talk about today. So, and I've just remembered this while we were talking. When I was making essences like 20 years ago or something, I started off with making flower essences. Flower essences raise our consciousness, and then we can make crystal or gem essences, which they're often known, which bring in a scaffolding to help hold the light in the body, and they're often a bit of a game changer. And I was also introduced to light essences, where we actually made essences under different colors. And so I made my range and it wasn't a range, I made them for myself and fairly innocently shared them and was told by a then mentor not to release them because I was copying her work. And I was like, light, that's universal, isn't it? But anyway, so I did because I didn't know enough then to do anything else. So along with many other things like making essences under the moon, which I was doing as well, I was also told not to do that. I kind of like I hid away in the cupboard again, so to speak, and they literally went into the cupboard. So I remembered that while we were talking today. So about a month ago, I woke up one morning knowing exactly what I needed to do over this winter. So November, December, and January until what I see the light returning around the beginning of February. And I was like, oh, okay, we can do that. So I was given the instructions to start to create some light essences. Interesting. But not using colors, using the sunrise and the sunset, and to just gather them. We're very lucky to live near the Gironde estuary, so we've got fairly flat horizons, so it's kind of almost perfect for, putting bowls out and gathering that light. So that's what I did, and to use this November as the deep dive for us in the Northern Hemisphere when it's dark and it's cold and it's murky and the sky is kind of like here. to really go in and feel, which is connecting back to what you were sharing, Kaylin, about the Grand Trine, around the water Grand Trine. It's just like feel everything, feel the shadows, feel the joy, just don't use the time, use the weather, if you like, or the lack of light to support the process. And then in December to start working, start opening our hearts for the light of the solstice. And again, you've just added both of you have added some extra information. And then in January, once that has passed, to start gathering our sovereignty, just like gather it all in and make it a little bit more solid and conscious in us, so that when 2026 begins, we've got a different light architecture. And those are the words that I was given. So I'm sure other people have used these words. I'm not claiming them to be mine, but it was like over this winter, it's really important to gather the light, but not just gather it as in, oh, this is nice, this is light, but actually consciously bring it in and through to create an architecture in our bodies so that we can hold that light in a different way. So I have zero idea really of what I'm talking about, but at the same time, I understand deeply what I'm talking about. I'd have to say it in a light language, which I've never done before, but so we'll see what happens. But yeah, so I'm just going to share you the little bottles that I've been having fun. So this is the sunrise codes. This was around the equinox that I created this one. I actually made it before I heard the instructions, I think. The sunrise codes. So everybody can go out and greet the sun. It's very well known the light fractals at that time are very healthy for our our glands and our systems. But I think for me right now, this is the one that I'm loving the most is the sunset codes because it's the yin energy. And I think that's what most of us most of us have some level of fatigue. We've got some level of, this has been going on an awful long time. And a friend of mine said the other day, or she's been saying for several years, but she reminded me the other day, when we volunteered to come in and be the light workers, we were like, oh, whoopee kind of thing. And like 40 years later, we're going, we're still doing it. There's a level of, gosh, this has been hard to hold. There's a level of that. And I think it's good to acknowledge it. So we're all really needing this yin energy and just allowing our feeding our bodies with the yin energy. So that's my own personal take on it. And so I'm sensing that nature is asking me anyway. And it was that's why Elizabeth's question helped me. It was like, okay, so my role, if you I don't know, it's not really the word, but I'm being asked to create a different kind of essence and to work in a different kind of way so that next year when we start working potentially when the flowers come back out again when the color returns because November for me is just like such a gray month. I really dislike it when the color goes. I really miss color with all my heart. It's quite a grieving time for me just because the color's not there. It's like, where have you gone? Um, and of course we get the autumn leaves and things like that, but it's not quite the same for me. But everybody's a little bit different. And so when the color returns and when the flowers and the trees start to open again, I sense that we'll have more ability to hold their consciousness because we've got light structures in place. I'll let you know next year. It's an experiment. So I got 13 women journeying. We're all journeying together. And so we're just kind of like supporting each other and just seeing how it goes, really.
So Sarah, can people get those essences from you?
They're not on my site yet, but they will be very soon. So I can absolutely give you the link and people can, yes, they can email me. We're hoping to get them online in the
Excellent.
next days, but yeah, just get in touch. Yeah.
I love that you're talking about this because at the equinox, I got very inspired to go start watching where the sun was rising and setting on the horizon, mostly rising because my Western horizon's not so easy to access, but And that light when it first peeks over is just so incredible. So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
definitely practice to I'm doing my best in the mornings to, even if I can't get outside because it's windy or raining, or it's not really my thing to kind of like go out in extreme weather. But that for that, if wind and rain is extreme for me, for some people it might not be. Just to stand at the window, just to receive the light in a different way. And the essences that I've got and placing them on my third eye. So it was really interesting what you were saying about three eye atlas as well. So yeah, so there we go.
Yeah, somebody posted on a video I did on Three Eye Atlas. I'll put it in the show notes, but they said third eye at last. And I was
Mm.
like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's a good way to see it. Yeah. And then Elizabeth, what you were talking about, the light from beyond our galaxy. Um, did I hear you correctly on that?
I didn't talk about that particular piece, but I had mentioned about Atlas being the king of Atlantis and that he was not a human from this world and that he had seven sets of twin sons who ruled different parts of the Atlantean kingdom. But that kind of alluding to pieces that we should look at in our history.
Yes, beautiful. So good that we were able to do this at this time, and I think we need to do something for the new year too, sometime soon. So, but there'll be links in the show notes. Be sure to check that out, and just that we can all be in this together and realize that what we're focusing on and how we're putting where we're putting our attention and intention and our vibration. So if we can stay in the vibration of love, that changes everything. And so these are some great ideas about ways to do that. And so thank you all so much. And
Mm.
we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.